Today we will be comparing and ordering rational numbers. Our essential questions are, how can you compare two fractions? How can you compare a fraction with a decimal? There are many ways that we can compare two fractions together. Let's start with the draw it out method. We are going to order the given fractions from least to greatest by creating fraction bars and comparing them. Let's start with 1/3. The first thing that we need to do is cut our fraction bar into thirds. Next is shading. Since we have 1/3, that means 1 out of 3. So we will shade in 1 out of the 3 pieces. Our next fraction is 3/10. So I have cut our fraction bar into 10 pieces. We need to shade in 3 out of those 10 pieces. Next, we have 5/8. And last, we have 1/4. Once we have all of our fraction bars set up, we can use them to compare our fractions. Using the visual, we could clearly see that 1/4 is our smallest value, followed by 3/10, then 1/3, and our greatest value is 5/8. Here are 5 other strategies to compare fractions. If we have common denominators, we can compare the numerators. 2/4 is less than 3/4 because 3/4 has more pieces. If we have common numerators, we can compare the denominators. If we cut a pie into 6ths, it would have bigger parts than cutting a pie into 8ths. So 2/6 must be greater than 2/8. Strategy 3 is using benchmark fractions, such as 1/2, 1/4, 1/10, and any other benchmark fraction that you find easy to work with. In this case, we're going to use 1/2 as a benchmark. We know that 2/6 is less than 1/2. We know that 6/8 is greater than 1/2. Therefore, 2/6 must be less than 6/8. Strategy number 4 is to change one denominator to match the other. We can rewrite 2/5 as a fraction that has the denominator of 10 by multiplying the numerator and the denominator by 2. Then we can clearly see that 4/10 is greater than 3/10. Strategy number 5 is to find a common denominator. Once we rewrite our fractions to have common denominators, we can compare them more easily. Let's dive further into the process of finding common denominators. In this example, we will order 2/3, 3/4, and 1/2 from least to greatest. Step 1. Find the least common multiple of the denominator. We have denominators of 3, 4, and 2. So we will list out the multiples of 3. We list out the multiples of 4. And we list out the multiples of 2. We want to circle the common multiple. Our least common multiple is 12. Since 12 is our least common multiple, that will be our common denominator. Step 2 is to rewrite fractions with common denominators. Again, our goal is to rewrite our fractions with a denominator of 12. It's important to remember that we do not want to change the value of our fractions. Therefore, if we multiply our denominator by 4 here to get 12 as our new denominator, we must also multiply our numerator by 4 in order to keep the value of our fraction the same. So 2/3 is equivalent to 8/12. 3/4 is equivalent to 9/12. And 1/2 is equivalent to 6/12. Now that we have a common denominator, we can move on to step 3, compare and order. We know that 6/12 is less than 8/12, and 8/12 is less than 9/12. Therefore, if we are going to order our fractions from least to greatest, we have 1/2, 2/3, and and 3/4. Now, what if we want to compare a fraction to a decimal? Our fraction can be rewritten as a decimal, or our decimal can be rewritten as a fraction. If we want to rewrite 7/8 as the decimal, we will have to divide. 7/8 means 7 divided by 8. So let's set up our division. 8 goes into 7 0 times. Now it's time to write in my decimal point and a 0 after my decimal point, so I can bring it down. 8 goes into 70 8 times. I'll write another 0 in my hundredths place and bring it down. 8 goes into 60 7 times, and 8 goes into 40 5 times. This tells us that 7/8 is equivalent to 875 thousandths. Now we can see that 875 thousandths is greater than 8/10. Now, we could have also converted our decimal into a fraction. Let's check that out. If we read this number out loud, it is 8/10. 8/10 means 8 out of 10. So now we have to compare 7/8 with 8/10. We can find the least common multiple and rewrite our fractions to have common denominators. So now we can clearly see that 35/40 is greater than 32/40, which means 7/8 is greater than 8/10.